What are earthquakes? Feel free to use the answer key I've provided to compare your answers. This video may offer a little bit of supplemental explanation. Part 1 is pretty straightforward. Please use the geologic processes notes or this earthquake slideshow that was given to you with the assignment to check the vocabulary. Pretty straightforward there. Part 2, also really easy from the vocabulary or rather the slideshow. Make sure that you know the instrument used to gather data for an earthquake is a seismograph. The seismogram is the paper that comes from that. Also, please be able to know the difference between a focus within the surface of the earth and epicenter at the surface. Very important to today's explanation are differentiating between the types of boundaries, the stresses found at those boundaries, and the fault that might result at each boundary. We've talked pretty lengthy about the types of boundaries at this point. Divergent, whoosh, 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 dividing, transform is the shimmy, and convergent coming together. So I've explained clearly the types of boundary and the sketching or the type of movement associated with them. What's new for you guys is the force or the stress that causes each. For example, the divergent boundary here. Divergent, divide, think about pulling apart, and that feels like tension. You're getting pulled in all kinds of directions. Unfortunately, that is something you guys as 8th graders taking a high school level course are familiar with. So one could say that tension is normal. You see where I'm going with this? That tension is normal. That's unfortunately, again, part of your life right now. So that pulling, that tension is normal in your life, just like the stress, the tension of boundaries getting pulled apart creates a normal fault. A transform boundary is the shimmy, and the type of stress that we use to describe that transform boundary or what causes the transform boundary is shearing. When it actually does break, the fault is called a strike slip. Convergent, coming together. The coming together, compression, if your vocabulary is developed, the word compress does mean to squeeze and come together. So that might already make sense to you. The stress, compression, stress causes a reverse fault. So we'll learn in a few moments, your hanging wall actually gets pushed up over it, over top of the footwall. And hanging wall and footwall, you say? I'd love to explain. Here's a very simple diagram that explains how a hanging wall is actually the wall that would be above the fault initially, and a rock climber could literally and would like to hang from that type of rock. Alternately, the footwall is one where you could climb up with your feet, and it can be described often as the one below the fault. Moving along to part 4, you've got to simply go to this link if you've not already, which you should have because it was an assignment. Go on the link to see what earthquakes have happened today already. They're happening all the time. This is nuts. Like all over the United States, the world, everywhere where there are plate boundaries, you could have earthquakes. So depending on when you checked it, I did it at like 10:40 in the morning, and already 16 earthquakes in just the United States had occurred. Pretty cool. If you do not know about The Ring of Fire, written by Johnny Cash, look it up. Fun song. You'll get to hear it today at the Zoom meeting if you haven't already. Part 5 is going to talk about the actual seismic waves that come in during earthquakes. So we'll watch lots of animations in our mini Zoom meeting today. But in short, there's P waves, S waves, and then what they call surface waves. We'll call them L waves here to stay consistent. P waves are the first ones to arrive. P actually stands for primary. S is the second one to arrive. It stands for secondary. If P gets there first, that means they're faster. Let's stick with that for now. And to get more explanation, if your answers don't match with mine here, more explanation will be provided in our mini session today. So show up. I'll see you in a little bit.